Okay, so I think this is going for Ryan. Okay, so let's start today with a bit of scheduling. So the next several weeks are kind of inconsistent in terms of class meetings because we got Easter break, we got Billy J Day, right? Hallowed tradition of Billy J Day. And so I was thinking over the break the best way to structure the next couple of weeks. And according to the syllabus, we have 2 exams left. Like I told you on the first day of class, I'm not sure the pacing of the class because I haven't taught it before. And so I think it actually makes the most sense to have an exam on just chapter 6 and 7 and then wait on chapter 8. Chapter 8 is kind of small anyway, but chapter 6 and 7 are kind of still foundational material. So I think here's what we're going to do. And since I'm recording this for Ryan, let me type this here instead of writing on the board. So today is Wednesday, chapter 7, like it says up here. So we'll talk about that in a second. Friday, chapter 7 again, but continuing with this stuff here. So the stuff we're going to talk about today, I decided to do 2 days on it because it's kind of subtle and it takes quite a bit of practice. And then Monday, we'll finish chapter 7 with lag and lead. So that'll finish chapter 7 on next week, and then Wednesday of next week, we're going to review for exam 2, and then we won't meet for another week because of Easter break. So then Wednesday will be exam 2. So there's not a ton of material left to do, but there's a lot of time because of the Easter break. So here's the schedule for the next 5 days of class. So an exam 2 weeks from today, which should give you plenty of time to prepare because of Easter break. So cutting the time. And we'll do an official review next Wednesday. So here's the schedule we're going to go with the next couple of weeks. So like I say, the syllabus I think has a tentative exam around this time anyway. So I was debating, do we lump chapter 8 in with all this stuff? And I decided not to because chapter 8 is not as foundational as these chapter 6 and chapter 7. So anyway, there's the schedule for the next couple of weeks. Questions on that? And this exam, not next Friday. So this gap here is because of Easter break. Yeah.
Oh, so it's in 2 Wednesdays from now.
2 Wednesdays, yeah. Yeah, so this is a week from today here, review. Yeah, so Easter break, it's Friday and Monday off. So this is,
Like advising night, advising day, like Monday and Tuesday.
I'm not sure about that. Monday, no, because Monday is off. And then I don't know, I can't do the dates in my head. This is April, like 3rd or something, I don't know, 2nd, something like that. It's the 2nd?
Yep.
Oh wait, but that is advising day?
That's what it says here.
No, that's the 3rd. Sorry.
Yeah, I just have the date wrong.
Yeah, I know
April
the
3rd.
third's an advising day. I can't remember if there was ever 2 or not.
No, the 2nd's advising day.
Yeah, April 2nd is advised. So in spring, there's not usually a Monday, Wednesday, Friday advising day. And so I'll, of course, send all this out in an announcement and stuff like that with correct dates. These dates here are correct, I think. Yeah, there's no advising day conflict. So, of course, I'll be doing some advising that Tuesday, like April 2nd, right before this, but I'm also happy to answer any questions you all have if you want to see me outside of class on that April 2nd. Other questions on the schedule? So yeah, so there's 2 weeks until this exam, so that should give you plenty of time. Okay. Let's save this. And like I said, I'll put all this in a formal announcement, so it's not just in this video I'm recording for Ryan and throwing on Brightspace. Okay, so today and Friday we're going to be talking about some familiar looking terms, sum, average, count, things like that we saw in chapter 6, but now we're going to use them with these window functions, these partition by, over kinds of things. So things like things like average, you can use without group by or partition by, whatever. You can just use on its own. The homework had a couple problems like that, and we saw some examples like that. But you can, as we saw, you can use average with group by, and now you can use average with the partition by thing we did last time. So that's all we're going to do today. Just these terms we already know. How do we use them with this window function partitioning kind of stuff? Okay, so let's put this down. I should also say that to give you a variety of examples, I'm doing examples in class, at least for this chapter, that are different than what are in the book. This gives you some variety, but also the book examples are kind of less compelling or something. They're kind of strange. The book wants to take averages of things that arguably you shouldn't take averages of. Anyway, so you have now sort of a bigger database of examples. The stuff in here are similar to the ones from the book, but not the same. So you can also, the book is also very readable. So anyway, okay, so here's what I want to start with, this kind of thought experiment. So on each day, here's what I want to think about. I want to show all transaction costs that are larger than the average transaction cost on that day. So just to motivate, or just to make sure we understand what I'm asking for here, I'm going to bring up the customer purchases table. So transaction cost, as always, the book calls this price. You can call it whatever you want, but for us, transaction cost or price is quantity times this cost per quantity. So this person here on, and actually let me go chronologically just so it's a little easier. So chronologically speaking, we start with April 3rd. Customer 6 bought 1 pound of something at $6.50 a pound, so their transaction cost is $6.50. You could ask, how does that $6.50 compare to the average cost of a transaction on April 3rd? Everybody see that? Like this $6.50 times 1, is that small or big, or about average on April 3rd, 2019? The next person did 1 pound at $4 a pound, so you could ask, that $4, how does that compare to the average, and so on. This person down here bought 2 pounds of something at $18 a pound, so they spent 36 bucks. How does that compare to the average? That's what I want to think about. Is that question clear? And so we've already sort of thought about this kind of thing in chapter 6, but as we saw last time, when you do chapter 6 just a group by, you can lose some information. Chapter 7 gives you more control over what you retain and what you show. So I'm just going to show you how we can answer this question using the tools of chapter 7. And just like last time, I'm just going to type this up. So part of this will maybe be kind of a black box. Hopefully most of this looks familiar. And then after we have it typed up, we will discuss what it all means. So here I'm just setting up the customer per quantity. I'm going to look at the market date, the customer ID, the product ID. And again, your book likes to call this product price. I like calling it transaction cost. You can call it whatever you want. So if I stop here, then there's nothing new. This is chapter 2 or something, you know. What's new today is this. I'm going to add a new column. That's an average daily transaction cost, and it's going to look like this. Average of, just copy and paste this. Average of that product, that transaction cost, but I want to somehow group by day. I'm thinking about average transaction cost per day. So instead of doing a group by, though, I'm going to use the technique from last time. I'm going to sort of group by or partition by market date. Okay. So there's a new query that we haven't seen before. Before I run it, I just want to make sure I'll have it typed, and then we'll talk about what it's doing. So you recognize this over partition by from last time? Last time we had an order by here also with all of our queries. Notice that's missing now. So you don't have to have that. And in this case, it's not clear why you'd even want some sort of ordering within partitions, because all you want to do is say, go to each day and take an average of the transaction cost. That's all you want. So that's what this is doing. It's grouping by or partitioning by each date. So each date is like its own bucket, its own separate thing. And then average of this transaction cost. And if I run this, what it does is it adds a new column, because I'm giving a new column an alias and all that stuff. It's up in the select part of the query. And it's just showing you an average cost. So $20.65. And that's on April 3rd. And if I scroll to like April 6th, see how the average is different? So you're adding a new column that's just showing the average per day. And then April 10th or whatever, right? So there's a lot of repeats of this number, but it's maintaining, it's keeping all the original data there. So group by would collapse stuff, right? Each market date becomes its own row. Here we're not collapsing each market date to its own row, because maybe you want to keep all this customer ID, product ID information. I don't know, individual transaction costs. Maybe you want to keep that. But now you can start to see like this customer who spent $650, that very first entry in the table, you can see that's well below average. 36 is well above average. 54 well above average. You can just see all that. Go back down to the query. Questions about that? Is that clear how that's working? And again, on your previous homework that I just graded yesterday, you could have already gotten this average information using a group by, but just again recall, group by would collapse all the days to one row. So when you ran your query, April 3rd would just be one row with a 20.65 there, and then April 6th would be the next row with 21.98 there. So you'd lose all this sort of more granular information here if you did that, which maybe is okay depending on what you want. Also, let me point out, it hurts my eyes to look at all those decimal places. So you can, of course, round this to whatever 2 decimal places. You got to be careful where you put parentheses. So round all this average over blah, blah, blah. You're rounding all of that. And then comma 2, you're not rounding this as average cost. So there you go. That makes that average a little nicer to look at. Questions on that? And is it clear how this is functioning? Okay, well let me ask you, if this is clear how this is functioning, let's now show all transactions per day. Oh, I don't need to retype this. I want to go back to this question I asked here, right? On each day, show me the transactions that are bigger than the average. So for example, in this output here, I don't want to see this 650 row. I don't want to see this 4 row, but I do want to see this 36 row. So how could you show all that?
Per transaction cost, average cost.
Okay, good. So that's basically what you want to do, right? Where transaction cost greater than average cost. That's definitely what you want. I'm not sure it'll let me do that. Oh, well, first of all, I have to do it. I have to respect the order of SQL, right? Order by comes at the end. Yeah, so, let's see if I can. It doesn't let me use the aliases. Some of you it does let you use. Let's see if even if I do this, if it'll let me do it. Yeah, so you can't use an average in a where. So you have the exact right idea, John. It's just it's not going to let you because of SQL's quirks. It doesn't like this. But you're right that that's the kind of thing you want to do. It's just that, again, it won't let you kind of reference this average in a where. So what you have to do is, just like last time, you have to let pgadmin make this table internally and then query off of that. So last time we did something like this. We said, like, basically treat this as its own table. All this within the parentheses here. Do you remember doing that on Monday? So like, okay, we built a new table. Let's query that. And so now you can do what you want. John, because now this new table has been created, and within this new table, PG admin knows these names: transaction cost, average cost. So you can tell it. So I got to give it the new table a name. Transaction cost is greater than. So do you all recognize this kind of structure from Monday? Okay. So you can do that again if you want. And now it shows you just the transactions that are bigger than the average, and it kept the average. Like when I do select star here, it's going to pull every single column from this subtable I made. So, if you don't want to see, all that, you can, I don't know. You can always ask for fewer columns. Just depends on what you want to see. Yeah.
Can you scroll down slightly?
Yeah.
Like on the exam,
Mm-hmm.
I know we can do the same thing with a group by without making a new table. Like would it the other way? When would it make more sense to just use the group?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So if you didn't hear exactly what she said you can get most of the same information using group by. So why bother doing this? And so that's a good question. The answer is, though, with group by, you lose all of this information here, this intermediate information, like product ID, customer ID. Like if I ask you, okay, of the transactions bigger than average, who's buying stuff and what are they buying? Group by won't let you see that because it collapses, it aggregates just on this number. And it just gives you this one date with that one average.
Yeah.
So this gives you more control over what you see. If all you care about is the average per day, group by is perfectly fine. But do you see what I'm saying here? I know, customer 23 bought product 7, resulting in a transaction bigger than average. We couldn't see that in chapter 6. Other questions on that? Okay, well, let me ask you a question. I want to know on each day, show me the transactions made by customer 14, let's say, right? That are bigger than the average transaction. So customer 14, when were they a big spender? Can you show me that? How do you think you'd modify this query to do that? Yeah, so this is easily modifiable for things like that. You can say, I want the transaction to be bigger than the average, and also I care about only customer 14. So you can filter this little subtable you made however you feel like.
So what was the purpose of adding the X here? Add X?
Yeah, so you need to give this, this is a table made, that highlight part, within PG admin. PG admin has sort of made an internal table for you. If you want to use it, you got to give it a name. So this X is the cheapest, fastest possible name you can give something. That's why your book does it. But, you can call it whatever you want. You do like that if you felt like. And here, I guess I should have been more formal. As you can see, it's not required here, but because there's no ambiguity about what customer ID is. But yeah, you're giving this.
Because we can't usually pull from average cost, so we have to make.
Yeah, so average cost is a column that you made within this table here.
Yeah.
And so, as you saw, if you try to reference that average cost, right here, right, it won't let you.
Yeah.
But we have now, once this parenthesis closes down here, we have now created a table within PG admin. And now you can reference whatever columns you want.
Okay.
So it's way more convenient. Yeah. And actually, here, you probably could just get rid of all this. The book does this for the same reason I do it. It's if you have a bunch of different stuff floating around, it's best to always reference like that, the way I had it. But here, I think it still runs. It's just if you got a bunch of other tables running around in the same query, right? It's sort of good form to make clear which table you're pulling from. And if the same variable lives in multiple tables, we've seen SQL won't run it for you. But anyway, so your book is always careful about like giving this new table a name and then using that name when it pulls variables. Other questions on this? So to answer your question again, Dammy, remember there was this question from chapter 6 that was like, it was in the university database, like find departments whose average salary is bigger than the average salary of all the departments or something, right? And if you wanted to do that, but also keep track of like individual salary professors or something, chapter 6 wouldn't let you do that. Because group by just collapses everything down. Okay. So I may or may not want to keep all this. Let me ask you now a new question. How many transactions did each customer make on a given day? Bless you. And what did they buy? So think about something like that. So customer 14 on April 6th, 2019, how much stuff did customer 14 buy? And then what did they actually purchase? What was the product? I want to point out that this top question, we could already answer with a group by. I think this was a homework question, I can't remember. But keeping track of what they bought at each stage is new. We couldn't do that in chapter 6. So chapter 7 exists to keep track of more granular information like this. Okay, so let's answer this. On each day, on a given day, just how many purchases did each customer make? Okay, so to do that, it might not surprise you, we want to count something, right? Count the number of transactions. So count was something we did in chapter 6. Here we just want to count the transactions, so we're going to count again. So we just need to structure this query so that I can get rid of this for now. This for now, I don't need the subquery as of right now. We just need to structure this so that instead of like averaging the transaction cost or whatever, we just need to count the number of transactions by customer. So let me ask you just what you think about that. Like to answer this question here, we already have a query in place. What kinds of things do you think we need to do to modify?
Round, replace the average with count.
Okay.
Product ID or something.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to count something. Let's come back to that in a second, right? But do you agree with John? We're going to count instead of average. And we probably don't need that anymore. Okay. So we'll come back to the count in a second. And since we're not rounding, I can get rid of all this as transactions now. Okay, what about this? So we still need a partition by market date. Do you agree with that? Like we still need each market date to be its own bucket on a given day. What else though? What else needs to be its own bucket?
Product ID.
Right idea, but then you'd be counting how many customers bought that product, which is kind of the flip side of the coin of what you want. For each customer, you want to know how much stuff they bought. Yeah, so customers are going to be different now. So just like with group by, you can partition by as many things as you want in a row. You can say, look, each market date is its own separate thing. So April 3rd is not the same as April 6th. And then each customer is also separate. Now here, we have to think about what to count different transactions. And John suggested this. And in some circumstances that might work. And you can see why you might want to count this. However, if the same customer buys the same product, which happens in this database, right? Like if I buy product 7 a bunch of times, if I'm just counting product ID, I'm just counting those 7s. So that might work, but in the database, we finally get to use this variable. It's unambiguous that each transaction time is unique, you know? So transaction time is like a unique identifier for a transaction. So what I'm doing here is for each day, and then for each customer, just count the number of times they appear in the database. Okay, so check out what it shows me. It says on April 3rd, customer 3 bought product 4, and they made only one transaction. So let's look at these 2s. And oh, sorry, do I need to scroll down? People still see the query. Okay, so you see here it says num transaction 2. And look, it says customer 5 bought product 4, customer 5 bought product 8. So it's not just showing you that there were 2 purchases made, it's showing you exactly what happened. You see that? And again, group by, you lose that information. Group by will basically just show you that too. And like for customer 6, we can see, oh, they bought product 4 and then bought product 5. That's why there's 2 2s there. So these columns we're creating have some repetition in them, right? Which might annoy you, I don't know. But the repetition is needed if you want to see this kind of information over here. Yeah, what?
I don't understand well why we use customer ID in the partition by. Like what does it change?
Yeah, so what if we take this out? Let's see what happens. Yeah, so now notice for April 3rd, these numbers are all the same. What do you think this 23 is? Any idea? Any ideas? What is this 23 telling you here? And just in case you didn't hear Max's question, he said, I don't know what customer ID is doing in this query, right? So I took it out.
It's showing you the total number of transaction times on.
Every day.
Yeah, showing you just each day the total number of purchases made. So what you can see here is like, okay, customer 6 bought 5, customer 3 bought 4, and so on, but it's not separated by customer. So if you scroll down, I assume there's 23 rows for that first day. So then we switch. Yeah, so that's what it's showing you. So when you do this, you're saying, not only do I want to go by each day, but I want each customer to be its own thing. And so when I do that, this num transaction here is showing you for that customer 3, how many purchases they made.
So
For
it
that
means
customer
that
5.
The 1 means that the customer ID 3 bought 1 time the product ID 4.
Right.
Okay.
Well, so they bought, so yeah, what you're saying is correct, but what it's saying is they made one transaction. If you want to know, well, what did they buy? It's also showing you that, and you can see that. And this 1 right here, that's a 1 because customer 4 only bought one thing that day. What they buy, they bought product 4. So if you keep doing this, if you can keep adding things on here. Let's think about this. Just as an example. Can anybody guess? If I do this, I mean, you can run the query yourself, but what's going to happen to this last column, do you think, if I do that?
1.
Yeah, it's just going to make everything 1. Because you're saying, like, on each day, for each customer, at this exact time down to the second, right? How many transactions they make. You see that? So yeah, you're not learning much there. We already know that you can only make 1 transaction at a time. To your question though, Max, it's just like in Python actually. If you ever want to know like, well, what is this doing here? You can always take it out and just see what effect it has. Now in Python, that's always a little dicier because the code just might not run. And then you learned that code's necessary to make it run, but it's not helping you see, right? But here, yeah, a lot of times you can take stuff out and it still runs, and you can sort of see the difference. Other questions on that? Okay, let me ask you this. How would you answer a question like this? Show the days, or write a query to do this. Show the days on which customer 4 made more than 1 transaction. So this table here has a bunch of information about all the customers, right? I only care about customer 4 now, and I only want to see where they made more than 1 transaction. How would you do something like that?
Like a subquery of
Yeah.
where customer ID equals 4 and known transactions is greater than 1.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to be sort of proper here and give the table a name and reference with that. But yeah, it's exactly like John says. So where customer ID is 4 and num transactions greater than 1. All right, so any of these like filtering questions, you can always just do this, like throw a subquery on there. So notice all the customer IDs are 4 and all the transactions are bigger than 1. So now we know on April 10th, we know customer 4 bought product 4, customer 4 bought product 7, customer 4 bought product 4 again, right? So this database has this quirk where some people make the same purchase, like they purchase the same thing multiple times in a day, which is kind of strange, but it is what it is. Yeah, customer 4 likes product 4, right? So like on April 17th, customer 4 bought product 4 twice again. But anyway. Yeah, like product 4 is customer 4's favorite thing, really. Okay, questions on that? Okay, one more thing I'll show you with this example is with these queries, it always depends on what you want to see. So do you want to see, like this number 3 here, it's showing you for that same day, this 474, and that 3 is showing you 454. For these 2s, it's showing you 54. So suppose at this point you say to yourself, I only really care about the 3, the 2. At this point, I just want to see the number of transactions made per day by this person. So you don't like the repeats at this stage. You can do this. And we're going to do more of this on Friday, so don't think like this is the only time you'll see this. But you can do this. What group by does is it loses information. It collapses. So you can take this big old table we have here and just collapse by market date. Okay, so I'm going to take off the, oh no, I'll keep it. So up here, let me lower this so we can see it all at once. And when you use group by, you can only select the, this is a drawback of group by. You can only, when you group by something, you have to only show what you're grouping by. Otherwise, it doesn't know what to aggregate on. Anyway, if you run this, so you no longer know what they purchased. But if you don't care about that, if you just want to know, oh, 3 purchases on 9/11, 2 purchases on 7/25, and so on, you can do that. So you can combine group by with these window partitions if you feel like. Everybody see the difference? Like if I take that group by out and do that again, it's showing me every single purchase this person made, and maybe you want to see that. But if you put the group by in, it's just, oh, it's like, oh, 3. Questions on that? Okay, I want to show you one more thing, and then I want you to try a couple homework questions. So here's the last question I want to think about today. How would you get running totals in the database? So by running total, I just mean like, suppose you want to know for each customer how much they spent on day 1, then how much they spent on day 1 plus day 2, then how much they spent on day 1 plus day 2 plus day 3. So watch over time how much money somebody is spending. You see what I'm saying? That's the question. How would you do that, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Would you do like the same thing you had, like and then maybe like when you create a new data set or the new table,
You do like did you sum?
Okay, good. Yeah. So Bryson is pointing out that at the beginning of today, I said we're going to do these things, right? So we've done the average count. I haven't done sum yet. But yeah, if you want to add things up as you go, surely you're going to use a sum. So let me just show you that, and then we'll quit up here for today. So I'm just going to show you customer D. So I'm going to just ask it to show me a bunch of stuff. Product ID. As always, it enrages me to type this. Cost to customer per. I wonder if I can like hotkey, like just tell my keyboard to remember what that is. Somebody smarter than me knows how to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to do a sum of transaction costs, as Bryson suggests. And suppose I want to know just a running total. Actually, let me, just to set up what I'm going to write. Suppose I just want a running total for the entire database of transaction costs. So what do I mean? Here's the database ordered by time. The very first purchase made was 1 pound at 650 a pound, so 650. Y'all agree with that? The very first purchase made cost $6.50. The second purchase made cost $4. So if I just want to keep track of like over time how much money is being spent at the farmer's market, I would want to know, oh, so $6.50 plus $4 is $10.50 at this time. And then plus another $18, plus another $36. If you just want to, if you want to keep track of a running total over time like that, that's what you want to do. So you want to sum these prices here over. Okay, so how do I want to set this up? I'm going to put this down here so I can see it all. So I'm going to type this, and then again, we'll come back and talk about what it's saying. Order by market date, transaction time. Get rid of all this. Okay. So let's think about what's happening here with this over. Partition by market day, order by market date, transaction time. Oh, market date, sorry. ID. Oh, sorry, okay. Let me go back to the big table, just order by market date, transaction time. This is what I should have looked at to begin with. Yeah, okay, sorry. So when I first ordered by market date, that 650 or whatever was not the first purchase made on that first day. So when I also asked it to order by time, the very first purchase made at the farmer's market was worth 36 bucks. Does everybody see that? If I take the transaction time off, it's not actually showing me within each day. It's not showing me the earliest times. So this 650 was actually not the first purchase made in time. If I put transaction time there. So the very first purchase made was 36 bucks. 2 times 18. Then the next purchase made was 18 times 1. Then the next purchase made was 650. So if you're keeping track, that's 36 bucks initially, plus another 18 is 54, plus another 650 is 60.50. Let me run this again, and now I'll be less confused, I think. So you see where these numbers are coming from? 36 bucks is the very first transaction made. And then somebody spent 18 bucks, knocking it up to 54. Somebody spent 650, knocking it up to 60.50, and so on. So all that to say, you can use a sum, as Bryson suggested, to keep track of a running total. And a sum makes sense to use because a running total just means you're adding as you go. So here I'm just adding like every new transaction I see where I'm ordering by day and time. So I'm making sure that I'm starting at the earliest date and then the earliest time. And then within that date, I just keep upping the time until I'm done with that day. And then I move on to the next day. So then I go to April 6th. And within April 6th, I just go by time. So this is a time series running total, going from earliest time and day to latest time and day in the farmer's market. And it's showing me the output by day. So here, if I go, as I scroll down from April 3rd, okay, so notice at line 24 what happens. That 475 gets knocked down to a 20. Why do you think that's happening?
It's a new day.
Yeah, it's a new day. I told it to group by market day, right? Yeah, so on the first day I can see it goes up to 475. The next day I can see, oh, it starts at 20. So the earliest transaction on that day was worth 20. And it goes all the way up to whatever it goes up to, 549.50. And then the next day it just starts over. And so here, let me just point out, you can take this, if you just want to see a running total across the entire database, you can take this out as partition by. Now it's not going to treat every day as its own deal, so it's not going to reset. Oh, oops, I can't have this down here. So now if I go down to the end of day 1, okay, here's the end of day 1, there's that 475. It doesn't reset the next day, it just keeps going. So if you want to see how much was spent at the farmer's market in total over time, you can go all the way to the bottom of this table. You got to go a ways. Okay, so like 70 grand. Anyway, so you can keep track of running totals like this. Sum of the thing you want to keep track of, and then like, do you want to keep track of by category, like we were doing initially? Do you want to keep track of by date, or do you not care about any sort of partitioning? Just let me go over the entire database. I'm still going by time. That's what this order by is. I still insist on going chronologically. You don't have to go chronologically if you don't want to. You do whatever you want. Okay. Questions on this? Is it clear what's happening with that query? Okay, and the homework, the ones you can most easily do based on what we did today, and we're just going to do more of this on Friday. So there are other ones that will become much easier once we do more of these on Friday. These are the ones you can immediately do from what we did, I think. Maybe not immediate, but can do from what we just did. So 12, 14, and 17. So it's obnoxious they're not in order, but so spend 10,